Section 3. You will hear 3 marketing students discussing their research findings on vehicles known as SUVs, or four-wheel drive vehicles.
So guys, have you got all your notes on four-wheel drive vehicles? Shall we go through what we have each found and think about how we'll put it together for next week's marketing seminar?
Yeah, sure. Let's start with what these cars were originally designed for.
Oh, I've got something on that here. Well, four-wheel drives, or sports utility vehicles as they are officially known, SUVs for short, were originally designed for off-road use by people who need to get to remote areas out in the bush, for instance. But the interesting thing is that they're actually sold now to a lot of people who just use them in cities, so they make quite different use of them.
OK, then maybe we should make a list of their advantages, shall we? So, one thing is that they're good for commercial use, OK?
How about also saying utilitarian rather than luxurious?
So you're not paying out for unnecessary luxuries. OK, what else?
Well, they have increased engine capacity, and they're also heavier, so suitable for towing large loads.
So is this why so many people buy them then?
Well, no, they seem to have become fashionable now for rather different reasons. Research carried out by automobile clubs shows that people buy them for business because of the sort of image they project. And mums like to drive their kids to school in them because they think they're safe. So that's another reason.
And you can get about 7 people into one of these. So we could say seating capacity is another factor. OK, another thing that came out of my research is that people also like the higher seats. They say it means they can get a better view of the traffic ahead of them.
But, you know, some of these reasons just don't work. I mean, the safety thing is just a misconception, because generally in a collision they can do terrible damage to a smaller car.
That's right. That's one of the disadvantages I have here. Shall we go through those now?
Good idea. So let's say that potentially they are harmful in built-up areas. Generally the damage they cause is due to their weight. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I've got a note here about their chassis. The bodywork on an SUV is stiffer and doesn't crumple to absorb impact in a collision the way it does in smaller cars. And there's another reason why they're not safe. It's quite easy for them to roll over, more so than an ordinary car, because they've got a high centre of gravity.
So these are all the disadvantages. How are we going to round this up?
Well, I think maybe we could round up with a few ideas of how we can limit the use of these SUVs. One thing that could be done is to limit them to people like farmers, who can prove that they need them.
That's good, but it might be hard to enforce.
And companies could also increase the insurance for SUVs, since they cause more damage when there's an accident.
That's a good idea too. I tell you what, guys, I'll write up these notes onto an OHT so that everyone can see them when we talk through our notes in the seminar. But I think we need to put together a list of our sources too.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Sure, no problem.
Section 3. Following instructions from their tutor, you will hear 2 economics students called James and Anna discussing a recent survey about the cost of buying a house in New Zealand.
OK, for this week's assignment, you're going to assess the value survey on house prices. What were the survey's findings? Was it a reliable survey? Work in pairs, discuss what you've read, and generate some ideas for the assignment.
All right. Shall we work together, Anna?
Sure, James. So, first, how did the value survey actually measure the cost of houses? Because there are lots of ways of calculating it.
Well, it looked at all houses, didn't it? New and old. So it started with average incomes across the whole workforce and then worked out house prices in relation to that. I mean, to what people were earning.
So it's about affordability, what people pay in real terms. But there's no information about the size of a house a typical family can buy.
No, that's a limitation. OK, then in the assignment we should give some background. I mean, what's different about the value survey?
Yeah, there's lots of these surveys every year. Value is actually one of the newer ones, but it stands out because it gives figures for a range of the largest urban centres, which none of the others do.
OK, good point. Then one finding was that New Zealand houses are relatively expensive. Why is that? Because most of them are built of wood, and that's quite cheap.
Yeah, it is. But the problem is there are too many regulations and restrictions about where you can build.
So if more building sites were created for housing, the costs would come down. That's it, isn't it? Because there are plenty of contractors ready to do the work.
Exactly. So, what else?
Well, what about transport? I mean, it's all very well to talk about new housing, but how are people going to get there? Is the survey proposing new roads, new rail networks? It should be a coordinated approach.
Yeah, but the survey didn't mention it. It's a missed opportunity because a commitment to funding public transport from the outset would improve air quality in our cities.
True. OK then, the next survey, what can we expect? It'll look at all the same places, right?
Exactly the same. But the next one will give an idea of the way prices are moving.
The government may have to think about how house prices are affecting society.
Then in the assignment, we need to evaluate how reliable the survey was. So we should look at some of the criticism made by commentators. OK, so there's the economist Andrew Coleman. He actually questioned whether the survey was money well spent, because it only looked at a single year in isolation.
A year when it was difficult to borrow money to buy a house, pushing up costs. So he thought the survey should consider a longer time frame. Did you get that article by Professor Massey? Because he's the leading authority on this topic.
Yeah, interesting. He realised the method used to calculate how much money people had didn't take savings into account. So actually, people looking for a house were richer than the survey shows, making houses cheaper in real terms.
All right. Then Richard Bernard, his criticism was original. He found out they were using quite outdated software to process all the information they gathered, which was crazy because they actually had the money available for an upgrade. So even though it was a highly regarded team of people, the way the statistics were interpreted was open to question.
OK, then Professor Lowndes. He thought the report was just badly written.
That's right. After all the work that went into gathering valid information, the finished report was just too long and weakly structured, and there was too much unnecessary detail.
And the last one, Maria Darling. She made a point about the properties that were evaluated.
There weren't enough of them, you mean?
No, it wasn't that. But they were never identified for privacy reasons. But she thought the actual properties used should have been revealed, you know. The process should have been transparent if the people are going to have full confidence in the survey.
Right. So a lot of criticism.
Yeah, but this sort of research is often controversial.
Part 3. You will hear two students called Arya and John discussing the research on water hyacinths. John, how is it going with your research on water hyacinths?
Well, I went on a field trip on my own and collected the primary data. After I came back, I also referred to the published data.
So, what do you know about this plant?
The water hyacinth grows in tropical countries. It has beautiful purple-blue flowers, but everybody hates it.
Why is that?
The water hyacinth, as the world's worst invasive aquatic plant, has attracted significant attention. Millions of these plants grow in rivers and lakes and have brought huge environmental and cultural problems to the local people. Farmers cannot travel in boats on the water and thus cannot fish in it. In addition, heavy free-floating mats of water hyacinth are clogging the dam at the power station in West Africa. Turbines of the power station are often shut down because of the intertwined leaves. Dams often cease to function as a result, severely restricting the electricity generation. Dense mats of water hyacinth also shade the surface and prevent algae growth, thus limiting the production of oxygen and threatening the survival of fish.
So, where did water hyacinth originate from?
The water hyacinth is native to the Amazon basin in Latin America. It has spread mainly to the tropics and subtropics throughout much of the world since the 1800s. Later, it was introduced into Europe and Africa as an ornamental garden pond plant due to its beauty. Flowers of this plant were being sold in local markets in African countries as a source of income for women. Since the 1900s, this weed has infested lakes, rivers, and creeks of the delta areas in West Africa.
I guess whoever introduced this plant had never expected the disastrous impact it would have on the local ecological environment. What kind of habitat does water hyacinth thrive most in?
Well, it has been discovered that the nutrient-rich environment contributes significantly to the rapid proliferation of this weed, which obtains its nutrients directly from the water. This is normally compounded with a decrease of nutrients along the river banks.
Why is that?
The main reason for soil nutrient loss is that local residents cut down trees. Excessive deforestation accelerates soil erosion, which indirectly compounds this issue. Without enough trees to retain nutrients in the soil, frequent rain might partly aggravate this by carrying some of the nutrients into the waterways.
Are there any effective measures to control or even eradicate this weed?
Yes, a number of approaches have been widely applied throughout the world. Among them, biological control is the most widely favored long-term control method by introducing a type of insect that feeds on water hyacinth. So far, Nigeria has used this method for 6 months. However, the water hyacinth won't be removed immediately. The side effects of this method on the local ecology will remain unforeseen for years because it takes time for this external insect species to reach a density sufficient enough to affect ecological development.
Then what about other approaches? Is there a quicker way to control it?
Well, the mechanical removal of water hyacinth is seen as the best short-term solution. This option includes harvesting plants and in-site cutting. This method can immediately open physical space for fish and boat traffic. It is, however, inefficient for workers to process extensive areas, and costly to use large cutting and dredging equipment. Ironically, it costs even more to dispose of this plant than to remove it.
Can we make use of this weed and turn it into something good?
Now scientists think that water hyacinth can be useful. The plant itself, although more than 95% water, has a fibrous tissue and a high energy and protein content and can be used for a variety of useful applications.
So what do people do with water hyacinth that is initially removed?
First, the cut-down water hyacinth is left to dry under the sun for a few days before being mixed with ash and animal manure. The mixture can be used as alternative soil rather than fertilizer. It can grow crops with increased yield.
That sounds interesting.
Mushroom farmers can benefit from water hyacinth as well. Using the mixture mentioned earlier, mushrooms generally grow much faster so that farmers can harvest mushrooms sooner, which enables them to make money faster.
I see. It can be used to grow oyster and straw mushrooms, right?
Yes. In India, attempts have been made to grow these types of edible mushrooms organically utilizing water hyacinth. These mushrooms provide sufficient nutritional values, including minerals and high-quality protein, which are essential to people's level of fitness.
Right. Are there any other measures taken to utilize water hyacinth?
In Southeast Asia, people feed cows using chopped water hyacinth mixed with other vegetables. Then the waste from the cows is treated to produce methane gas, which can be used as fuel for cooking, lighting, or powering an engine. And with global warming getting worse, developing alternative sources of energy will be more urgent than ever.
Maybe in the future, people will love water hyacinth instead of hating it.
Yes, that's very likely if we can make full use of this weed.
Section 3. You'll hear a student called Paul talking to a tutor about a course he is thinking of doing.
Good morning. Come in. You're Paul, are you?
Yes, I spoke to you on the phone.
Yes. Have a seat. You wanted to talk to me about the archaeology course?
Yes, I've read the handbook, but I'd like to find out a few more details before I decide whether to do it.
Right, yes. What would you like to know?
Well, first of all, can I combine the archaeology course with one in anthropology?
Yes, you can combine it with any other subject apart from classical history. That's simply because there's some overlap in the lecture times for those two courses. We weren't able to coordinate them.
OK, fine. And could you tell me about the modules?
Well, in the first semester there are 3. All of them are compulsory. We don't offer optional modules till next year.
Right.
The first one focuses on what can be learned from specific artefacts, such as pottery and stone tools. It's called Object Matters, and it's taught by Dr. Morris.
Is that... how is the module presented? I mean, is it lectures?
We refer to the means of presentation as the learning method, and in this case it's lectures integrated with practical sessions, so it's a mixture.
What about the content? I suppose we'll be looking at different kinds of archaeological remains and how to date them and so on.
To some extent, but the module is basically about processes. First of all, recording material, then classification, then interpretation of the data. That's how archaeologists draw conclusions about their findings. And finally, display. Is that okay?
I think so. Yes, thanks. One other thing. How is the module assessed? Is there an exam?
No, it's all based on coursework.
OK.
And the second module, that's the one called Towns and Cities, is taught by our department head, Professor Elliott. And, as the name suggests, the module's about the origins of built environments and how they developed.
That's mainly factual then, I suppose.
It is really. And for that reason, the assessment's by examination. But you may be pleased to know it's an oral rather than a written exam, and...
It sounds a bit scary.
Most of our students find they actually enjoy it, so don't worry too much.
OK.
And then the title of the third module is Method and Science, and in that Dr. Thompson will be introducing you to the standard techniques used in archaeological fieldwork and analysis, things like excavating and dating.
What about the learning method for this module? Are there any lectures, or is it all laboratory work?
Oh, it's half lab work and half seminars. There aren't any lectures. Then, right at the end of the module, you'll take part in a site survey. The date for that is week beginning the 10th of March, but I can't tell you the location yet. That'll be announced later. But I think you'll find it very useful.
Yes, I know someone who went on that last...
Section 3. You will hear 2 environmental studies students called Jennifer and Adam comparing their research on pigeons.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hey, Adam, are you ready to compare notes for our presentation on pigeons for next week?
Yes, I think so. I found some really good sources describing all the different kinds of pigeons for the background section.
Me too. I knew they were a common bird, but didn't realise there were so many types. I found an interesting new study on the Australian crested pigeon. It makes a special sound to warn the rest of the flock of danger.
But a lot of birds use calls or songs to find a mate or to sound the alarm. What's special about this one?
Well, it uses its wings.
Really?
Yes, if the pigeon is startled, it makes a whistling sound when it flies off. This sound warns other pigeons in the flock that there's danger.
Interesting. I found a lot of stuff on the rock pigeons. They're the ones with the widest distribution.
Of all the pigeon species, they've been the most successful at adapting to different environments, haven't they? In contrast to the rock pigeon, there's a pigeon in the north of Australia, the black-banded pigeon, which is restricted to one very small patch of forest. Another interesting thing about it is that unlike the typical pigeons we see on pavements and roads, it stays way up in the trees in the rainforest.
That's unusual. They're varied in terms of diet as well. The Galapagos pigeon, for example, gets all its nutrients from this one kind of cactus that grows on the island where it lives.
Really? So is there anything that pigeons can't eat?
Yes, actually. They should stay away from meat because it contains bacteria that is dangerous to them.
Oh, right. You know, I thought pigeons all looked the same, but their plumage is really variable too. The Nicobar pigeon from Indonesia is very attractive. It has beautiful metallic green feathers.
It's a wonder they're not hunted.
Now, in the second part of our presentation, we plan to look at why pigeons are seen as pests nowadays and what is being done to control them. A lot of people in the city like to feed pigeons, don't they?
Yes, some people think that it's kind, but in fact, it's not a good idea.
I suppose human food isn't very healthy for birds, especially fast food.
Actually, because the pigeons don't have to spend time looking for food, they have more time to mate and reproduce. And so it results in population explosion.
I see. So the city becomes absolutely overrun by pigeons. That's bad for the city and for the pigeons. Now, I read that here in Melbourne, we have a pigeon problem in the centre of the city and the City Council is trying to deal with it.
Yes, they've built some special nesting places in one of the parks in the city centre. They're designed to house the pigeons so they stop creating nests on buildings.
But isn't that just changing the location of the problem?
Well, that's just the first step. In the second stage of the council scheme, they exchange the pigeon eggs for dummy eggs. It's like a form of birth control.
A very elaborate one. Someone would have to go in and replace those eggs by hand.
Well, yes. The program does work as a means of controlling the population, but the financial burden on the taxpayer is quite high.
Yes, I imagine it would be.
The most successful pigeon control program in recent times was in Basel in Switzerland.
And what did they do?
Well, the City Council found that teaching the public about the negative effects of feeding pigeons was more effective than trapping the pigeons, or providing alternative nesting sites for them. These were both methods they'd tried previously.
Really? We'll have to include that finding. Do you think we've got enough for our presentation, or should we do more research?
Well, I was thinking that we should also make it clear to the audience why pigeons in cities are undesirable.
Yes, we haven't really done that yet.
Right. I've got some information on the damage their droppings do to buildings.
And I've got something related to that on how their feathers can block gutters and pipes causing water damage.
But I haven't found anything yet on the health risks to humans that urban pigeons pose.
Neither have I. Let's look for some information about that and add it.
Okay. Can we meet again tomorrow in the computer lab too?
Section 3. You will hear a tutor called Dr. Harris and a student called Lisa discussing Lisa's postgraduate research project on the role of health visitors.
Hi, Lisa. Good to see you again, especially since you've chosen to do your master's with us.
Well, I enjoyed my first degree in nursing, and I decided I want to become a health visitor. You know, someone who promotes health and well-being and is part of a team within a community, getting out and meeting people of all ages. So that's why I chose this research project.
Excellent. And your focus, the role of a health visitor in the community, is spot on. But at this stage, you need to keep an open mind so you can respond to initial findings once you get underway.
From what I read, the role seems to vary quite considerably.
Yes, some health visitors tend to focus on liaising with family doctors. Others work independently with new patients. The work of health visitors in future is most likely to rely on the relationship between these roles. And I think that would be an interesting angle for you to pursue at some stage.
Yes. What I really want to impact is the problem of physical development checks, which start with babies when they are only a few days old.
Right.
Another area which I am thinking of investigating is the monitoring of nurseries, which is currently under review, and there is the issue of preschools, at what age they should take very young children. I thought I'd also include childminders, the individuals in the area of Haynes that might not be qualified but look after young children.
That's an area I'd stay clear of as it's very complex.
Okay, will do. Anyway, I'd also like to make a short film about a few children.
A good idea, but it will depend on building up a relationship with one or two health visitors willing to introduce you to a family. An opportunity like that would allow you to look at how young children begin to form words, for example.
And peer relationships between children, as well as the ways in which they relate and play with each other, especially when they are around 2 to 3 years old, although early use of language is my main interest.
Okay, but there are other topic areas I'd like you to consider before we finalize the content and structure of your research. An equally important area is the child's home environment and the effect of a newborn baby.
Right.
You need to consider the impact of this on the parents, particularly if the family lives in poor economic circumstances. Of course, the additional expense could be a worry, especially if there are other children. Certainly, all those matters are very sensitive and not necessarily easy to detect. There's plenty of help available, but many people often feel too proud to ask for it.
This is the area where I will need to be familiar with family law, isn't it?
Very much so. By all means, be aware of the medical conditions, and you also need to consider social practice. But you'll find that in most circumstances, you will have to refer to the law to understand how far a health visitor can intervene.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Now, your book list. I'm glad to see worldwide health care policies tops your list.
Well, I wasn't sure how relevant it would be, but it's a new edition, so the information is current.
Yes, some of it may not be relevant, but it's important to keep abreast of developments in other countries, which may inform our own government's legislation.
I understand. What about supporting vulnerable families? It's not as costly as some of the other books on my list.
It's an excellent buy considering the price, even though it does leave a few things out.
I've already ordered Health Visitors and Child Protection. I hope that was right.
Well, it's very expensive, but it's a sound investment, and there aren't many textbooks which cover as much detail as this. It will be a valuable reference even if the style is occasionally boring.
And what about the future of health visiting? I'm unsure how useful it will be.
Useful in a utilitarian sense? Probably not, but it's stimulating in the way the writer considers what health visiting could be like in a perfect world. I'd suggest dipping into it to discover the improvements which could be made if money were no object.
And resources for health visitors?
Strangely enough, it's not as helpful as the title suggested. It offers a huge variety of activities and strategies which are great when working with young children, but they're presented in a rather haphazard way, and the index isn't much use either. Be very careful when using it.
Okay. That is the end of Section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear a discussion between a student called Helen and her tutor about an assignment that Helen is working on.
Come in, Helen. How can I help you?
Well, I'm doing research for the anthropology assignment, and I was hoping to check a few details.
Sure. You chose the topic of Pacific Island Tapa cloth, didn't you? What have you found out so far?
Well, I was going to introduce my assignment by saying that the Tapa cloth is a fabric made from bark. just the outer layer of the trees. It's particularly common in the Pacific Islands, but not exclusive to them. In fact, many other peoples around the world have made high-quality cloth from bark. But what sets Pacific tapa apart is the incredible variety of roles it's played in this region.
Yes, nice introduction, though I think you could be more specific regarding dates. OK, so what about the raw materials used?
Well, tapa cloth is made from several species of tree. In the Pacific, the paper mulberry tree is most common, but it doesn't thrive in all conditions. In fact, it wasn't originally found in the islands, but was carried in their canoes by the first migrants. Tapa is also made from the breadfruit tree, which is convenient because its fruit is a staple food. The paper mulberry tree is only grown for tapa making, though.
Yes, that's good. Now, what about the Maori people here in New Zealand?
But the Māori don't make tapa now.
That's right, and you need to account for it. We know that when Maori migrated here from the other Pacific islands, they were prepared to make tapa because they brought the paper mulberry tree with them. The thing was, after they'd been in New Zealand a bit, they found the flax plant, which is superior to tapa because it makes a stronger fabric. By the time Europeans arrived in the 18th century, Maori were making all their fabric from flax and had been for some time.
OK. So, with the production process itself, first the inner bark is beaten with wooden hammers to soften the fibres. Then the different pieces are glued together using an adhesive paste made from the arrowroot tuber. This is the only way to fabricate large pieces of cloth because bark strands are too fine to be woven together and stitching isn't strong enough.
So now you need details about different countries.
Where would you start?
I think Samoa is the obvious place. It's famous for its very fine cloth called siapo, which is hand-painted with representations of the ancestors. Still today, at the most profound events in life such as births, funerals, weddings, and the investiture of chiefs, Samoans wear siapo robes to add significance and meaning to the ceremony.
OK, then I could talk about Tonga. It seems to me that the great innovation in Tonga has been developing a simple, coarse cloth which is quick and easy to make. This is suitable for all sorts of everyday functions around the house like bed covers, mosquito nets and curtains.
Good point. Now, what about Cook Islands tapa?
Well, the soil there is poor quality, so the breadfruit tree is often used. One type of thick cloth called tikoru was wrapped around the poles and used to mark the entrances to places of worship, so it was highly regarded in local culture.
You might mention Fiji as well, which is interesting because tapa was actually used as a currency there. Fijians used to sail between the islands and exchange tapa for other commodities like canoes or pigs.
I know that in Tahiti the tapa cloth is different because the patterns are in colour, which is considered more valuable than the usual brown patterns.
You're right about the Tahitians using coloured pigments, but they aren't more valuable. The colours are only a decoration. People enjoy wearing bright robes, especially for dancing and competitive games, and do it just for fun.
Oh, I'll make a note of that. Well, the last place I was going to mention was Tikopia. Even today it's commonplace to see people wearing clothes made of tapa cloth. In many of the other islands, the tapa only comes out on special occasions, but here you see people working in the gardens wearing tapa.
Sounds promising, Helen. I'll look forward to reading your assignment.
Section 3. You will hear 3 geology students, Andy, Bob and Helen, talking about forming a study syndicate for their forthcoming examinations.
Right then, are we ready, Bob? Helen?
Yeah.
And is someone taking notes for John? He's at a tutorial, isn't he?
Yeah, I'll let him know what we agree.
Good. OK, well, first thing is, has anyone apart from me actually been in a study syndicate before?
No.
What does it actually involve, Andy?
Well, the idea is that it's a way for students to study together without a teacher.
Oh, yeah, right.
When I did it last time, I found it helpful because, well, as I said, there's no teacher, so it means we're teaching one another. And I found I really learnt a lot through having to teach it myself. It seemed a very good way to learn.
And presumably it gives us the chance to share ideas as well.
And you get fuller notes if you're all doing the reading.
That's right. And as well as that, because of that really, you can do, much deeper research. So I thought we could try it to revise what we've done on the geology course. Because I know this is the one that most of us are worried about, the geology exam.
Oh,
right.
Yes.
Yeah. So the idea is we all look at a different topic from the geology course, and then give a presentation and talk about it?
That's right. I've drawn up the framework of a table which might be useful. Here, I've made a copy.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, thanks.
For the first topic, I thought we could maybe do mountain building. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure. Actually, would you mind if I did that? I'm quite interested in it.
Right.
Right.
So is May 9th OK for that?
Yeah.
I'll just write that down, and it's Bob for mountain building. And the following week, it can't be May 16th because of our tutorial. But what about the 17th?
OK.
And what about the next topic? What would be the next priority?
Well, there's glaciated areas, but I don't want to do that.
Fair enough.
Actually, I don't mind having a bash. I did an assignment on them. Glaciated areas, Andy. Then we need someone to do rock formation. Helen?
Yeah, OK. And John said he'd like to too, so you can put us both down for that.
When?
May 23rd would be best.
Rock formation, Helen and John, right. That really only leaves 1 week before the exams. Shall we make it on the 30th?
I can't make it, I'm afraid.
29th of May? The exam's on June 3rd.
Have to be. OK.
Any ideas for a topic?
John said he wouldn't mind doing something on volcanoes.
Great. That's everyone then.
And how long should these presentations be?
Well, it's obviously up to us. In my experience, 30 minutes is about enough.
Maybe a bit short. I'd have thought 40 minutes would be more like it.
Well, shall we say 30 to 40 minutes?
OK. And presumably time for questions.
And discussion.
Yes, together they usually take about 20 minutes.
Where shall we get the information from? Is it mainly lecture notes?
Well, actually, I suggest we avoid those because we already have all that information. I think it's better to go more deeply.
We could use the bibliography.
And anything else we find in the library, any other books.
And articles, from the journals.
And then, of course, there's lots of stuff on the internet.
Yes, that's the sort of thing.
And what about the presentations? Will we just be talking? Presumably we can't use slides.
It'd be a bit difficult, but we can use the OHP.
And the whiteboard, of course.
And we can make photocopies of our notes so everyone can have a copy.
Yes, great. So is there anything else?
Part 3. You will hear 2 early childhood education students discussing a presentation they will give on reading picture books with children.
Hi, are you ready to discuss our presentation?
Yeah, sure.
So, what are we going to say about teachers reading picture books with young children?
I think we should start with the reasons why teachers use picture books.
The journal article we read mentioned several picture books and why they're popular with teachers.
Right, like I Spy Friends. It's a lovely story.
Yeah, the children like to find the familiar faces from the fairy tales they know so well.
And they're all doing predictable things. The article said children find this familiarity very comforting.
Yes. Now, how about Goodnight Little Rabbit, which has those delightful pictures? I love the way the colours get darker as the book progresses, indicating how evening turns into night.
Me too. The article said that's why teachers like it.
Very cute. And a good example of visual subtext. Hard to believe that it came out over 60 years ago. It's still relevant.
I really liked what the article said about the boat party. There's a lot of repetition, which I think would be great for vocabulary development.
That's true. But apparently it's the images that make it popular with children. The artist is really well known, and children often ask for her books.
Oh, that's good to know.
And shall we also include Puppy and Friends?
Yes, it sounds like an innocent title, but the article warns that there's a bit of a fright. You know, the one on the last page when the puppy suddenly encounters the scary cat. Teachers like to use this to help children explore their emotions.
Sounds good. Hats and Socks is a good one. It doesn't really have a beginning and an end, does it? Which is unusual.
That's why teachers like this one though. Because it's so different, it's good for children to hear a story that doesn't follow the usual pattern.
And the pages are so full of life and colour. A good choice. Okay, and for our last one, how about A Family Adventure? This one uses a lot of the same language throughout, which I think can help with letter and word recognition. Teachers say it has a really poetic feel to it. They often sing it to a simple tune.
Yes, and it's full of beautiful watercolours too.
In the next part of our presentation, shall we look at some of the other research? I really liked Smith's article about the history of picture books. Picture books haven't been around for that long, of course, and as we know from our reading lists, there's a lot of research on them already. Smith makes some interesting points.
Yes, one thing that shocked me was that some people don't consider picture books as proper writing, because they don't have enough words in them.
Yes, that was unexpected for me as well. I think they should be just as respected as other works of fiction. Smith also mentioned that books from other countries are very popular here, even though they don't show our daily life. I think that's interesting.
But it's the same for adult fiction too. People want variety. What I didn't realise is how fixed the number of pages is.
Me neither. I wasn't expecting that they're so strictly limited to 32 pages. It's important, so let's include it.
Alright, now let's think about other aspects of picture books we want to include in our presentation. How about the characters?
Okay, well, a lot of them feature animals, or families often in very traditional roles. But do you think we need to talk about that? For me, the main thing is that they are mostly printed as board books. The cardboard material makes it easy for young children to turn their pages.
I agree, and it's essential for children to hold books and learn how they open at the front and that the text goes in a certain direction.
Good point. Why don't we also discuss how culture is important in picture books, like the importance of respecting the elderly?
Yes, it's probably different all over the world. Would it be interesting to make a comparison between modern and historical picture books and consider future directions for the genre?
It sounds interesting, but I don't have any research on that, so we'd better leave it.
So what's next? We don't need...
Section 3. You will hear two students called Josh and Emily discussing an assignment on applying scientific techniques to art.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, Josh. Are you ready to work on the assignment?
Yeah. Now, we need to describe how modern scientific techniques are being used in the field of art history.
Right. And Dr. Abbott suggested that we choose some famous cases to illustrate the argument.
Okay, so what have you found?
Well, there's a Canadian forensic scientist called Biro.
Yes, I think I've heard of him.
What do you know about him?
Well, I'm a big fan of Jackson Pollock.
The modern American artist. Didn't he paint those really huge abstract paintings?
That's him.
I guess it would be pretty easy to fake one of those paintings.
No way, Emily. I know a lot of people think that even a child could paint one. To the untrained eye, they might look simple, but they're incredibly intricate works of art.
Well, Sorry, but I really can't agree with you. Anyway, what did Biro find out?
Well, Biro worked on a case where a client asked him to prove that a painting she bought for only $5 was an authentic Jackson Pollock.
So was it a fake?
Well, Biro found evidence to show it was a genuine Pollock, but the art world didn't accept his findings.
Why?
Well, one critic said that compared to other Pollocks, the white and yellow lines on the painting were too straight.
Come on, Josh. That doesn't seem that convincing.
No, you're right. It is a bit weak. But the strongest argument was that there were no records of previous owners. For the painting to be authentic, you really should be able to trace the painting all the way back to the artist's studio.
Well, that's true, I suppose. Did they consult with anyone else?
The International Foundation for Art Research got involved.
And what was their verdict?
Well, they saw a definite similarity in the painting techniques used.
You mean the way Pollock dripped the oils on the canvas?
Yeah. And they noted the dirt and paint marks on the back, which all of Pollock's paintings have.
Why's that?
He used to lie his canvases down on the ground when he painted them. But the foundation were worried about the acrylic paint that was used on the painting. It's quite common now, but it was very unusual back in Pollock's day.
So it was probably painted much later.
Right.
So whose side are we on in this argument?
When it comes to art, you can see the art critic's point. If their knowledge and expertise tells them that it definitely isn't a Pollock painting, shouldn't we believe them? I mean, that is usually how it works in the art world, isn't it?
Art historians have always judged paintings, but things are changing now. If we have modern scientific techniques like fingerprint analysis, why not use them?
That's true. Well, maybe we need a combination.
I think you're right. So did you find out anything else, Josh?
Well, have you ever heard of a painting called The Battle of Anghiari?
I have, actually. It's the lost masterpiece by Leonardo da Vinci, the famous Italian artist. What about it?
Well, an Italian art analyst called Seracini thinks he knows where it is, and he's using scientific techniques to help locate it.
How?
Well, art historians knew where the painting was last seen.
That's right, in the Hall of the 500 in Florence.
Right. So, Seracini had a theory that the painting was still there, and he set out to prove it. He used a lot of different technology, like radar and thermographic cameras. But initially, he scanned every inch of the hall with a laser in order to make a really accurate 3D model of the building's design.
Did he think the painting was hidden in the building somewhere?
Exactly. Then, to find out what the hall looked like in Leonardo's time, he took pictures of it with a thermographic camera.
Couldn't he have used ultrasound to do that?
Not really. Different types of building materials produce different amounts of radiation, and you can really see those differences in a thermal image.
So, brick would look different from wood or glass, for example?
Yes. Seracini worked out what the building looked like when it was first built, and what renovations took place after that. He found that 2 large glass windows on the east wall had been removed and filled in by the time Da Vinci started work on his painting, leaving a space big enough for it.
But why hasn't the painting been seen for 400 years?
To answer that question, Seracini needed to study that wall even more closely.
Did he use the thermographic camera again?
No, this time he used another kind of technology, radar.
And what did that show?
It showed there were in fact 2 walls there, an older one and a newer one built in front of it.
So does Seracini believe that Da Vinci's painting is on the concealed wall?
Yes, on a stone wall concealed by the newer brick wall.
So, what's the next stage in the investigation?
Well, he isn't allowed to remove any plaster or bricks, so he's now experimenting with a gamma-ray camera to try and verify his theory.
Well, I think we've got some really strong examples there of how science can help art. Let's see if we can type up an outline.